Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for the Production Designers United panel. We're very excited to have incredible representatives of diverse organizations from around the world that represent production designers. And we're going to speak a little bit about unions, representation, and the promotion of our craft. So I'm just going to let every participant introduce themselves and speak briefly about the organization that they are part of, starting with Chuck.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Chuck Parker. I'm the National Executive Director of the Art Directors Guild, IATSE Local 800, and we're located in Los Angeles, California. I want to start off by saying that the union has been very good to me. We have a very strong, what we call collective bargaining representation, where we negotiate with the various employers, the majority of them all at one time. It gives us bargaining strength when we deal with all of our contracts, which covers our terms and conditions of employment and wages. And that in turn translates to strength for our organizations so that we can provide a lot of benefits of membership to our members. We have a very strong education department. We have a lot of engaging events. We have an award show. The education department that I've just mentioned is a very valuable aspect of membership in our organization.
Hello. My name's Fiona Donovan. I'm from Australia. I'm the Vice President of the Australian Production Design Guild and also the President of the ECS section of MEA, which is the Entertainment, Crew and Sport, of MEA, which is the Media Entertainment Arts Alliance, which is our union. And I'm going to explain that we have in our section, we have about 3,500 members, and we cover live performance screen, outdoor venues, which is like sports venues, racetrack and musicians. And then we're also in alliance with journalists and actors. So we're a very small country. And the APDG, we have 350 members, and that is production designers, costume designers, screen and live performance.
Hello, I'm May Davies. I'm a relatively new member of our organisations. I joined the art department branch committee of Bectu, which is the UK trade union for film and live production. I joined in lockdown. There was a lot of action then, and actually I hadn't really heard of it before. I didn't really know what they did. I've actually also changed career and started working in the art department in full-time in 2016, so relatively new to the whole industry actually. And on the Bectu committee, I kind of noticed a big lack of representation for low budget and indie filmmaking, so I kind of advocate in that area and do some work with that area. And then I was also asked to join the events committee for the British Film Designers Guild in lockdown because I had reached out to them to see if they would be happy to consider adding short films to their awards category, and had a really interesting meeting with the chair at the time, Sonia Klaus, who I think, again, had it not been locked down, there wouldn't have been that kind of time to have all these conversations. So I was really grateful for that opportunity. And yeah, the Film Designers Guild, like with Fiona in Australia, we're different to the union. So the Film Designers formally supports the union's work and vice versa. But the guild's more about kind of standards and knowledge sharing in the art department. And the union's much more about kind of rates and terms and conditions of work.
Hello, my name is Diego. I'm from Colombia. I'm a young art director. I'm really glad to be here to show our association that represent artworks from Colombia, production designers, art directors, set decorators, prop masters, construction managers, from different generations. We are a young country in terms of industry, so it's very interesting, this mix between old process and new visions. I would like to say thank you to Inbal and Kalina to invite us to release our association today to everybody, to see what we are doing for the last 4 years by ourselves.
Thank you, everybody. And I would like to ask everyone what current issues are important or are being raised within your organization. And actually, I'd love to start with Diego, because as Diego mentioned, their association is very, very new, and they are really starting from zero. So if you can tell us a little bit about the process of how you got together to decide to do this and what you're facing now.
Well, we start just with a couple of meetings with colleagues 4 years ago, because everyone's shares knowledges, experience, process, good things, bad things, experience. We start for that, just find a place to speak. Then the COVID came, and we're still doing stuff during this period by Zoom. But at the same time, the Ministry of Cultura asked for us to make, different kind of formats to understand what the art department do for each roles, because producers and the people that work in the ministries, they don't know what we do. So we start just try speaking. Okay, let's teach or let's write all these formats to them. But we realized that for the last 10 or 12 years, we was working with production service. So we have a mix between our kind of scale of product or projects between the production service. So we have the opportunity to work with people from France, England, Brazil, everywhere, and they work in a different ways. So one moment we was speaking that how we're gonna work now, because every time that somebody can start a new system, at the end it's the same, because we make the things, but we need to be in the same page to understand our industry, and also we need to teach ourselves, our crews, because we want to improve our experience, knowledges. We start like this.
May?
Yeah, I think my area of interest in the organisation is to do with advocating for low budget and indie film. It kind of came out of seeing how there was a lot of activity to organise the rates, the fees for working on films in the UK, and the UK is very lucky to have an enormous range. I think most people were, we have formal arrangements, formal agreements with producers for films over £30 million, and a TV drama agreement as well, but everything under that is completely not protected. So it comes down to collective action in order to do that. And when the union was discussing rates, kind of everything under 8 million was just in one category, and I was kind of like, wow, there's some work to do here in terms of what people understand about the difference between a £500,000 film and an £8 million film. And so there was a couple of other people interested, so we we contacted some producers that we'd worked with, and again, the COVID opportunity to talk to people was great, and they were really keen. And we kind of did that because we wanted to make almost like a blueprint guidelines of this is what we need, kind of art department for dummies, read this and when you're planning your projects. But actually, it was a really two-way thing, and they were really keen to hear about what we do. It's the same conversation that's come up quite a lot. Producers don't know what we do, and I think finding the source of the problem is really important, and I think that's one of the advantages of small, low-budget indie films. You also find the growing producers, and if we can kind of get to them at that stage, then hopefully they grow into the bigger producers. And yeah, also just kind of sharing between the industries. It's almost like like allowing people to transfer from low budget to big budget, and understanding what the lack of skills that might need some attention are. So, for example, I've kind of always designed short films because it was the most accessible thing to do, but I've also worked in lots of art department roles, and I kind of understood that I needed to learn to draft. So, and I think equally, someone from bigger budget who's grown up in the studio systems needs to learn kind of how the rest of the crew works, and kind of a bit more hands-on in order to work on kind of indie films, and just kind of promoting the advantages of what low-budget films do for the industry. They're kind of a creative testbed for ideas, and a valuable training ground for diversity. And I think when I say that, I'm talking about kind of financial background and access to opportunity. I think they're an incredible place that people can come into the industry, but so many people give up because it's really difficult to transfer across to some of the bigger things. Yeah, and in the Film Designers Guild as well, I found them to be really receptive to the small, they kind of jumped on the idea to have a short film category, and actually it's in its third year now, and it's going really well. And I think there was a kind of funny moment where someone had said maybe we should stop, I don't know what the term was, but like real production designers entering, so it gives new people a chance. And I was like, no. Sure, everybody lots of big production designers make short films. It should be a competitive category like any of the others. So I thought that was interesting, and that was kind of taken on board as well. So yeah, I think it's like a two-way learning thing, and just kind of representing this part of the industry that is in the UK. And I think it's very similar to a lot of other countries' whole film industries, actually the kind of indie world. And that's why I was excited to be here, because I think that a lot of European countries, we can learn a lot from European filmmaking and how kind of crews are put together. And yeah, just interesting to talk about the differences and similarities.
So the Australian Production Design Guild is only 10 years old, and it came out of the need, it came out of a purpose of the film school in Sydney was going to cut the design stream. And so very established designer got everybody together and said, we can't let this happen, and we need to have a guild. So at the heart of what we do is advocacy and support. So everything we do comes out of that. So we advocate, we have, and these issues are just continuous, so it's also about letting producers know what we do. It seems to be a perennial problem. But being valued for the work that we do, acknowledging, so we have an awards program, so we acknowledge the work that's done. We do a mentor program, so we're actually engaging finding pathways for young designers. And we have a whole series of manuals on our website about what we do, so we're trying to educate people. So because we cover live performance as well as screen, we kind of double up a bit, and there's some wonderful resources that we've put on there. So we look extremely flashy, but we run on the smell of an oily rag. So it's about trying to engage with the members. So we have one part-time employee, and the rest of us are all volunteer. And we get together. We actually, because Australia is so large, we use Zoom as an amazing resource. And just before lockdown, we decided we're sick of doing meetings where we're part there and part on Zoom, and we just do them all on Zoom. And throughout the pandemic, we actually created big chat rooms where disciplines could get together and we felt supported with each other. And then out of that came a series called Dialogues in Design, where we interview designers and feel connected with each other. So the main issues for us at the moment are to try and gauge everybody back into the process, and that works across the union as well as in the guild. And the union at the moment, we're doing the wonderful dance of the local agreements with the producers, and we've started with safety because we feel that is a really great stick. So it's emotional, physical and mental well-being, because it becomes under work safe. So in Australia, I'm sure it's the same in other countries, we thought if we come from a place of what's creating a safe work environment, then we're going to get further. We're having a boom at the moment, and the producers are very keen for us to go to the government and train more people. We're not interested in training people to enter an industry that is not sustainable long term. We seem to lose a lot of people mid-career. A lot of people go and have families, and the hours are ridiculous, and it's not sustainable long term. So we're kind of trying to look holistically at our approach in these negotiations.
The Art Directors Guild Local 800 has gone through a seismic shift in the last 20 years. The West Coast studio locals are very separate. There's distinct jurisdictions for each skill. Starting in 2002, the art directors merged with the Scenics, and then in 2006 to 2008, the International Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees also merged the set designers and the illustrators and matte artists in. So we're now one local. So that creates its own jurisdictional headaches. My job is manyfold, not the least of which is to make sure that these jurisdictions are honored and that no one is displaced. In smaller areas, you'll have art directors and assistant art directors who can do multiple things. They're allowed to draw, they can do construction drawings, they can do graphics, but such is not the case in our local. So that needs to be honored and those rules followed. It gets complicated as production has moved throughout the United States. When I started in the early 90s, production was pretty much centered in Los Angeles, but gradually it's spread out. Now on any given day, there's anywhere from 35 to 50 shows in Atlanta alone, multiple in Chicago, Santa Fe, Albuquerque, Boston, all throughout the United States, not to mention New York City. So you can imagine how complicated it gets. Now, also we've had pressures, there is a new movement to increase diversity and inclusion, and it's a very honorable movement, and we have taken positive steps in the last negotiation for our basic agreement. There's a very robust diversity, equity, and inclusion provision in that, and I'm happy to say that although there's always room for improvement, the percentages of diversity, of diverse new members in our organization is pretty much second to none, including for the employers. Also, COVID has introduced a lot of pressures on us, a lot of work balance pressures that we've had to deal with a lot of the members. The complete production shutdown that happened was something that was very strong that we had to deal with. Most of you, or a lot of you here from international areas, you have healthcare provided in your countries, or national healthcare. We don't have that in the United States. We have a very robust and very healthy health program from our union affiliation. But when the work is not there, the healthcare disappears, because it's all based on contributions that are based on your hourly, the amount of hours you work. So that was a real challenge and struggle for us in management of the organization to figure out how to provide healthcare for the members. And luckily, some of us union leaders are on the board of directors for the healthcare program, which is called Motion Picture Industry Pension and Health Plan, or we call it MPI, and we were able to provide health care for members to tide them over until production started back up. But the two key things that are facing us right now is diversity and work-life balance. Work-life balance is getting harder as the employers, in their infinite wisdom, are truncating prep time. So they're expecting more and more by providing less and less for us. So it is a struggle, and I think it's a struggle we can all work together with, you know.
Thank you. I myself am also a union member. I'm a member of Local 829, which is United Scenic Artists. It's the other production designers union in the US. So if you're a production designer in the US, you can either be a member of the Art Directors Guild or United Scenic Artists, depending on where you live. And I've definitely noticed in our union that production designers are not that involved in our general meetings. There's not that many production designers, and since the union, such as the guild, represent different types of, you know, our union represents costume designers, scenic artists. When production designers are not there, our voice is not heard. And so I'm wondering if you have thoughts on how to engage and motivate production designers to be more vocal about advocacy. And I wonder why you think that possibly that is not the case, or is it the case with every one of the organizations?
You just tossed that to me.
Sorry.
You know, that's a tricky one. As I look around here, some of my production designer friends aren't here, I've noticed. Yeah, engagement. It's a difficult one, and honestly, looking at it on both sides, like I mentioned, the employer's not making it any easier on us in our workplace. I mean, they keep cutting prep time. They want more and more. They're giving us less and less, including time. So asking someone to give more of their time when they're not working that's a high bar to measure up to. So I do understand it. But we are only as strong as we are set with membership involvement. It's a big deal, and it counts a lot. Now, the Guild, we have a strong communications department, and we send out a lot of communications. I communicate with the members regularly. I travel a lot. 1 week a month, I'm out somewhere. I'm either in, like I said, Santa Fe, Albuquerque, or New Orleans, or Atlanta, or Chicago. That seems to be the best way to engage with members since they are so busy, and there's also the time change. You know, if we start a meeting at 7 o'clock in Los Angeles, even though we make it easy for the meetings by way of Zoom, it's still 10 o'clock in Atlanta, and people are they're so bone tired. You know, you can't really expect them to do it. I certainly can't. So it is a difficult mountain to climb, membership engagement, but you have to keep hammering, you have to keep communicating to them what's in their best interest, and reaching out one-to-one if necessary. You know, I do that quite a bit.
Thanks. It is really hard to engage people, primarily because of the time factor. So we have a monthly meeting, which is our executive committee, and we tried as an experiment because we were like, we're just doing business and we want to talk about the meaty things like we've done this weekend. And what would happen is the meetings would blow out for 3 hours, and if you're on set at 5 o'clock in the next morning, it's exhausting. So we've gone back to the model of we're just going to do the business. So it's how do you foster community is really at the essence of it. And I found that it was so wonderful, our awards, that everybody came. And we also live streamed. So at the same time, we were able to talk to the rest of the country at the awards, as well as meeting people in real life. So it's a sense of community and support that I think then brings people together. And sometimes it's a matter of just twisting the rubber arm, which is an expression I use, which means basically not letting someone say no. Like, I really think you'd be great at doing this. I think there's a few people here today that I have done that to. And it's like, don't take no. Like, you have got something to contribute. And I've done that for the union as well. A few people are like, but what would I do? And it's like, it's not, the process of being on the union board is not about, the process is the process, but what you bring to it is your knowledge. So, and your understanding. The union and the guild are there for you. They are there to support you and the work that you're doing, and collectively we have more strength. So if there's more than 500 people or more than 40% union members in the industry for the union, when we go to the producers, we have power. We have the ability to say, we'll threaten to shut down. We've never done it, it's never happened, but there have been shows where we got to an hour before when they were going to strike on Home and Away, and the producers came back to the bargaining table and made an agreement. So it's actually having people being organised in a productive way, not a destructive way. So it's like lifting everybody up is really important. So I really feel at essence it's a community, and I have to say, this is extremely nourishing to all of us because we're in a community here today.
I mean, there's lots of designers in the Film Designers Guild, and it's kind of more apparent why that would be. I think it's more geared for designers. Everybody talks together and shares work. I think the union, there are maybe no designers in our committee, I don't think, or not kind of full-time designers anyway. And I guess something Fiona brought up actually, when the people that were working out the rate card, the wages, it doesn't include designers, and I think that information is still quite mysterious and by negotiation through agents and things. So maybe that's partly why there aren't designers in the guild, but I notice yours does, which is kind of interesting. But I would say I can maybe speak from my personal experience. There's been lots of talk today about how everybody's only as good as their crew, and how amazing would it be if you could start a job without that fight of amount of crew and wages that are being paid. And I think being part of the union helps you to hear what the current issues are, and feel like you have a support group as well to be more vocal about that with producers at the beginning. So I'm just in the middle of a really small feature that I'm designing, and I said to the producer at the beginning I couldn't take the job unless I can have this many crew and I can pay them the Bectu Band 1 rates, because I just know I won't be able to find them. And there was a bit of toing and froing, and then it was kind of okay, and I don't think I would have necessarily had the confidence to do that before, but I knew that it was the collective opinion. So I think it's kind of the reason it's good for production designers is because if the crews are happier, then we can just do our job rather than fighting for weeks at the beginning about X, Y, and Z. And then also the kind of finding like-minded people to work in kind of subgroups, like the work I do with, there's two others that work with me on the low-budget action plan, and it's slow moving. We're all really busy, like it's hard to find the time. There was a bit of a burst of energy in lockdown, and then we tick along now, but we've got plans to kind of keep going with that, and it's just kind of a network of like-minded people and colleagues out of a work situation.
For us is quite different. We start thinking in a program or process during the year, because for sure it's important to speak about conditions, rates and this stuff, but we need first to teach ourselves, the producers, the institutions, but our motivation is the passion for the art department. We know that we have to be care about our crews, so we know that it's important. Our experience that we start 10 persons, voluntary, just doing, job by ourselves, no pay, just because we want the things changed. And in this scenario, when you think in collective, you put your ego, your individual things to one side. And then you start to think in community. So that is more powerful for us because we're going to be more strong. It's quite romantic, but it's the motivation for me. And also, if we think that we are different generations, new people, youngers, is realize that we appreciate the memories, because 15 years ago we are doing just, I don't know, 1 films by year. Now we are doing 15, 17 projects by year, so it's different. So we want to be in the same table with the all production designers, because it's important for us, because it's represent our fights, our history. So for us now, the process is speak, teach, and then this is gonna come, but step by step.
So you're bringing up an interesting point that, as I think everybody has brought up, that many people don't know what we do, even in our own industry. And I'm interested to know, beyond, of course, kind of the basics of unionism, how do you go about, and even as a person and not necessarily a member of the organization, how do you feel that we can promote our craft beyond just the bargaining table? Because it's evident that a lot of colleagues don't understand the intricacies of the job, and it's probably why it's not represented in award ceremonies or catalogs of festivals and so on and so on. And anybody can jump in.
I'm going to start. So we noticed that there are all these short film festivals and festivals in Australia, and one of the younger members wrote and said, how come at the Melbourne Short Film Festival there's awards for cinematographers and composers but no designers? So we went through and we've actually started writing to everybody, all the awards, and saying, why aren't you including designers? So it's about advocacy. Where are the gaps? So where are the gaps, and what can we do? I think that's what we've done. I mean, it's really hard. Like, we wrote a manual because we were like, this production, screen design manual, I forget what it's called, trying to tell producers what we do so that it's kind of laid out in a way that they understand. And it was out of date the minute we finished it. It took 4 years to write. There were 4 of us that did it. It was an excruciating process because we all worked so hard. And Inbal was saying she's doing one too and going through the same. It's really hard. You've got to... But I see the value in it, because the more we educate, the better understanding, the happier the outcome. There you go.
I want to say one thing here is that they may not recognize it, but they sure are pissed off when it's not done right. Getting this out so that they understand, because we're dealing with the age-old aspect that some of them think their fathers could design it, like their mothers do the costumes too in the garage. I mean, it's a mentality that's hard to beat. We promote it by way of our Art Directors Guild Awards, which is a big proponent of it. I'm also constantly hammering it home with the labor relations executives for all the studios that I deal with on a daily basis. But you have to have boots on the ground. I rely tremendously on the input from our members that are working out in the field. I'm not asking them to be snitches, but I am asking them to please tell us whenever there's an issue so we can address it. And I do not deal directly with producers. I will not do that. It's sort of an unspoken rule. I deal with labor relations executives. If I do otherwise, if I reach out to the producers, it's called direct dealing, and that's illegal. It's against labor law in the United States, just as for the producers to deal with our members directly in terms of terms and conditions of employment is illegal. They have to go through the union. But it's a constant source of re-education with the producers, and just when you think that they get it, they turn around and make some boneheaded move, which just really disappoints you. But it's like Sisyphus, you know, pushing the big rock up the mountain, isn't it?
We also work in a manual that explains to the producers what we're doing, but in another moment we start in person, but the other production designer are seeing what we are doing, so they are motivated and they add to us, they help with another things that is good. In another way, we speak a lot with the ministries, so we try to find spaces during the year in this event that we have. The Bogotá Audiovisual Market, in Cartagena Film Festival, in awards. So we want to be in these events to show everyone that we still here, that we are doing. We are looking at spaces. So it's a strategy, but it's interesting because it's be more together, because in the same point, everyone is sharing their process. That is nice, because we learn more than just be inside and selfish with the things. Other thing that we are speaking inside is that we want to be the bridge when any production designers came to the country, because we can tell honestly, we have this, we don't have this. These people are available, they're not. And you can speak directly with them. Look, they are all. You can choose, you can speak with them. So it's interesting because inside we want that everyone's get a job, everyone's improve, and be equal or quite equal, but this is important. All our documents we want to put in the website that everyone can access to this thing, and that's it.
I think I'm a big fan of two-pronged approaches in everything, it seems. And I think with promoting what we do as production designers, it's a case of sharing, having an open door, making these manuals. But then I think on the other side, it's been taking collective action and just demanding more space in the room and taking all the things that were asked of us, but take the budgets as well. So take the SFX, take the practical lighting, but take all the money and control it all. And by being together more, we kind of give ourselves the confidence to do that. But the kind of explaining side as well, I think in lockdown, the theatre designers in the UK ran a really interesting campaign called Scene Change. They've kind of had enough as well. And they made some really great infographics, and it was kind of a non-hierarchical explanation of all the different roles that make up theatre design. And I've been kind of, on this current project, I've been trying to think of an infographic for showing all the things that you have to do before, during, and after a half-day location prep shoot. And then imagine like an infographic that makes up a week's schedule, and you can start to see how busy we are. And so hopefully, you know, things like that might stop these stupid questions like, can you get in and out of this in half a day? And you're like, no. So I don't know if anyone will look at them, but maybe visuals are, I mean, we're all kind of tend to be visually orientated, but it feels like they're good to at least remind yourself, if not to show people. And you can kind of use the documents you make for yourself. I always look at my I also keep a note in my phone of every stupid thing that happens and to try and remember what to ask for next time. Like, I had a fight on this job when they didn't understand why I might need an office as well as a prop store. And then I got the office and it had no windows, and I was like, damn it, I've got to ask for windows. It's like, Jesus, you've got to make this really long list of things to remember to tell them that we need.
Yeah, it's very interesting, I think, to think of the reasons for why it's so difficult to explain our job or for other people to understand it. And I do think that some of it has to do with us still figuring out our job. And on that point of the manual, I'm the co-chair of a committee called our department Best Practices in my union, together with Sam Froschle. And we've been working for 4 years on our manual, which we just finished. And our committee met so much to actually discuss certain things, because you realize that it's a practice that it doesn't have a manual, and that everybody kind of comes up with their own system of how to do things. So in our committee, where we had art directors and coordinators, and there was a lot of discussion about, okay, how do you negotiate? And how do you prep, and what is office wrap? And we tried to really go very deep down, and we realized that a lot of things we actually never found the consensus. So I think that's interesting to think, what is it that makes producers not understand what we do? And I wonder if I can ask you guys if you have an idea, because if we understood where the weaknesses are, we could perhaps figure out how to explain it better.
That's a tricky one, because I can guarantee you, now it's been over 6 years since I worked in the craft, because, I signed a contract to do this job, and it's exclusive. But I can guarantee you, from 30 years of designing and being in a scout band 40% of the week, they're real sure what we do. They're very sure what we do. And they rely on us to solve a majority of their problems. Do we shoot it on location? Do we put it on stage? I got these actors, they want to go to New York on the weekend. Can we bring this up? Can we do it earlier? There's the number of questions and problems that they put on our lap is endless. So maybe this is a PR issue. I don't know. I get a lot of questions a lot of time. How come the DPs have more power than the production designers? I can tell you that in 1961, Local 600, the Cinematographers Guild, hired a PR firm, and we didn't. So a lot of it is public education. And a lot of that can be accompanied or can be accomplished through unity. And this weekend has been a seismic shift in unity for our craft worldwide. This has been tremendous, and we need to harness this. But, and I'll tell you that a lot of the producers I know are aware that this event has happened. I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of you from different countries. I'm trying to learn, what are your systems? How are you represented? Are you represented? How much are you represented? What I'm finding is that it's a hodgepodge of situations. You're working on shows, some of you where camera, electric, and grip are represented and the art department isn't. Surprise. And I hope that this opens up a real miasma of communication from all of us with each other. Because now that we put faces to names and we've had conversations, drank together a lot, it can only be the good for our craft and for all of us collectively. Because collectivity is where the power is. And the only other thing I want to say about power is that nobody gives it away. It has to be taken. And you can't do that individually, only together.
art department we make worlds, which we talked about yesterday, and it's not quantifiable. So you start a job and you go through the exploration of the world that you're making. So the producer makes a lucky guess. I think it's going to cost this much. It's a lucky or an unlucky guess. So then you start working with the parameters of the scope of work being the script and the resources that you have being the budget, and you're kind of negotiating back and forth the whole time. So a lot of the on-set crew turn up with their truck and pull it out, their gear, they put it back again. So it's quantifiable. So I think partly we're unquantifiable. So it's sort of, in a way, educating for the possibility. Not for that we're different, but that what are the possibilities that we want to have when we do a job? That's what we need to educate producers about. And also, where I'm at, I actually go to the government to negotiate with the producers for telling Australian stories, content laws, because I see it's like the budget is a lump of money to make a project, and it doesn't matter whether it's for visual effects, special effects, actors, it's like we're all in it together. It's not the location budget or the art department budget, it's the budget or the estimate to complete. So it's like it's all about what goes on screen. It's not about it's actually how it's spent for the good of the job, not for the politics of the people in the job. So I think I go and go with producers and other guilds in Australia to lobby the government for funding and recognition for the same reason that I'm in the union and with the APDG, to lobby for recognition. So I think that it's like the more we take the power, as Chuck says, we disobey. I think that's the thing, is we disobey. I love that. It was said the other day.
I think it also starts in the universities, and there's some really brilliant institutions in the UK, but there are film courses in universities that don't feature production design at all, and it's training writers, directors, cinematographers to think that they do it by themselves and that we are there to give them some props to shoot in front of. And I don't know, from what I've experienced, I think producers just, in low budget world, art department is also really unrepresented. So on a short film or a small film, the art department's really small, and you're kind of running around doing a million things and not actually achieving an awful lot. And then it grows into the biggest department, but the producers don't see that. So maybe it's partly our own fault with the low budget to keep making things work and not kind of telling them. But yeah, like when we had this consultation with some indie producers through the union, there was something really interesting that one that I'd worked with said. I guess because we're off set as well, right? So they hang out on set and they see everybody working, we're somewhere else, and they don't really see what we're doing. But she said that when she's budgeting for pay, so she has everybody in like a 4-tier system, so it's like DP, first AC, second AC, runner. And all the departments pretty much fit into that. And then she's like, art department. And then she just gives like a lump to the designer to kind of deal with. And then that means, depending on the experience of the designer, how that gets distributed down into some of the other roles. And sometimes that can be not enough money at all and result in kind of really low wages and people doing things for free. So yeah, she was kind of asking for the help. And she is sometimes employed to write up the very first budgets for production companies in the development stage. And she started to get in touch with me when she does that and say, how do I know how much it's going to cost to build a set? And there's so many questions, but at that stage, it's so early. But sometimes this is where the budgets are set, and then years later, they just land on someone's lap, and you have to kind of try and do something with it. But so I was wondering about whether we could maybe offer a consultancy service for that kind of work, actually, kind of as in our guilds and groups and unions, we could be like, is anyone developing a budget? You can spend half a day and we'll tell you what you need to do. So that was one thing I was thinking of recently. But
from us is a little bit tricky because we came from another realities. So, like Stefania was saying, we have in the national films projects, we have less weeks of pre. We don't have enough crew. So for sure, some of the producers, they don't know what really we do. But some of one knows. So we also need to understand this balance between big projects, independent projects, but to be clear. The other point that is important is when is talking about all that you are saying, because it's super different, but you can help us in many things. I mean, when some projects came, the crew from other countries have different conditions than us. And that is not good because we are working in the same project, we are doing the same job. So we need to put this in the table because we are a same crew. And this thing the producers for sure know, and we need to speak about that, keep the same conditions. We work more hours than the others. We work 6 days, the others work 5 days. For us, it's normal. And if the production designers came from other country, they have to know because he can help us or she can help us. This is important because the things start to change with this. And in the other side, if you came to another country, I was thinking in a concept that is like came with a decolonization attitude, because sometimes came because you want to work there, you know how to work, but you have to speak and make a mix between. Keep this information clear and don't assume that we know, we don't know. So it's important this because sometimes the same crew is, for me, is too colonialist, and I don't like this because I was working with people from many countries and I learned too much. So this is important.
I have a difficult question, which is about the boundary between our sort of personal responsibility and what we expect a union or a guild to advocate for us. And I encounter that a lot within our union. I see, of course, members are always expecting the union to push for better rates, better hours, better work conditions, but I know that as production designers, we often overwork, don't ask to get paid, bend over backwards, work on weekends. And specifically, for example, a few years ago, we had a meeting in our union, and we were, of course, production designers in the US don't get paid overtime. So if you're working on set and you're working beyond your hours, you get paid more. But if you're a production designer, you just get paid your salary. And supposedly we work, I think, 60 hours a week, but nobody works 60 hours a week. And so we are complaining to our union, and our union is telling us, do you ever fill out your time cards with the right hours that you work? Nobody, no production designer that I know ever actually writes their real hours on their time card. And so to me, that was a very poignant moment of recognizing what we expect, but what do we really expect from ourselves? And it's a sensitive point. We also have to protect our own crews, and when we overwork, that's not the example to put out there, but it's very hard, I think, for all of us, and myself included, since we feel like we do this for a passion. So it's, of course, a complicated duality, and I wonder if you guys want to comment on that. Chuck?
Very funny example you just placed. Yeah, people don't want to fill out their time cards, duh. It would be great if everybody did, if they put the real hours in. You will get a lot of accountants on shows squealing like a stuck pig about it. They just are, they don't want to see it because they realize that it's ammunition for us. Now, what we have done in the meantime, even though we ask for more money, there are terms, you can't get what's called better conditions in the agreement. So that's one thing. Number two, in the last agreement that we negotiated, what we went for and attained was increased benefits for the on-call people. On-call, I don't know if you guys are familiar, on-call is a position that just has a set rate. So for instance, an on-call wage rate for an art director right now was like $4,300 and something for a 5-day week. That's unlimited number of hours a day. An on-call person is expected to establish their own schedule. That's during the 5-day work week. If they work a 6th day or a 7th day, that's overtime at time and a half. You can imagine that they don't like to pay that very much, but sometimes they have to, particularly when they cut the prep schedule so much. But that is one way that we were successfully able to advocate. We got in the agreement, instead of 60 hours of benefit contributions a week, it would be 70, and we staged it in 2 periods. So the first year of the agreement was just this August 1st. It went up to 65 hours a week, and next August 1st, it will then go up to 70 hours. That may not seem like much, but as you reach retirement age, they will be very, very grateful for it. And it's incremental bargaining. We don't get everything all at once. We try and get as much as we can each time in as many different areas as we can. And this last basic agreement negotiation they were historic gains for the rank and file members in film entertainment. Historic. We got things that we had been trying to get for 20 years. For 20 years, they wouldn't even pay attention to us. And the reason we were able to do it is that we were all united. We put our separate local concerns aside. We all worked together. No local was left behind. And that's the type of mentality that it takes. Like Diego said, you got to put your ego aside.
It's kind of my current rant in our screen meetings is about production design wages, and we don't tell each other what we earn. Like, I know from some of my colleagues, we kind of do, because I was art directing for them, I knew what they got, and politically, it's really interesting. We were having this discussion because we're negotiating with the producers. So the union, we're doing this massive document of all the wages. And in our screen design manual, we put down all the wages, including the heads of department in design, costume and makeup. And we then put everyone else's wages. And a lot of people I've heard back were not happy, in the art department, were not happy that we'd set the wages for them, because it's in our interest to have, they thought, low wages. But we were trying to fight for them. So my current thing is with our screen committee is to say, actually, we need to look after ourselves. We've been looking after everybody else. Every job I go on to, I'm always looking after my crew. And it was only when I got an agent that it actually changed for me, because I could then say my value is, and they can negotiate, and then I don't have the yucky thing with the producers afterwards. My agent's the person they've fought with. But so now we've even there's an art director in Melbourne and I who've pulled out a way kind of separate to the union and the guild, and setting all the wages and talking to everybody about the art department wages, so that we can then go to everybody and say, this is what the art department wants. But what do the designers want? So I'm very interested in watching what the costume designers in America are doing at the moment, and I really believe we need parity across production design, cinematographers and costume designers. And that's my local rant, my current rant to my colleagues at the moment. And it's only the beginning, but I've found we don't value ourselves, and we kind of need to advocate for ourselves, because what we do is you get on a job, you've read a script, you're into that, and you're there for the job, and you kind of forget about yourself. And I see it happen to all my colleagues. It's like, who advocates for us? Well, we need to advocate for ourselves.
Yeah, I think the union is very much there to bring people together, to kind of listen to set the status quo that we'd like, the terms that we'd like. But I think it's 100% on the production designer as the head of department to take responsibility for that, for the whole crew. Be interested. I don't expect to always do this, but in this film, it's quite a small film, and I just negotiated everybody's rates, and including car, box, phone, just to save time, really, so that when I was crewing up, I could be like, this is what you're going to get. These are the terms and conditions of the working day. You know, I put day and a half for 6th day, so if anybody works a 6th day in a row, they get time and a half, which was good to do at the beginning, actually, because now they're like, oh my God, how can we stop these 6 days? And that's happening. And also being really strict about hours as well. Everybody's working 8 till 6. There's absolutely no need to do longer than that. People are really ingrained to stay. So, I mean, I've even left the office and then gone back because people just won't go, you know. And we do it for different reasons to other people. It's lovely to work with people that are passionate about storytelling, but often it's a job. And the idea that the least paid youngest person in the room should be there first and leave last is absolutely ridiculous. So I think it's our responsibility to make that change for people. And a happy crew is going to do kind of anything to make the project work. So I think it comes back to help you eventually anyway. But yeah, I think it's our responsibility to make these changes.
I think in our country things are changing because some producers are more conscious about that. I have a sample. My last project was interesting because we showed them the onliner and our schedule of strikes and dressing, and with this paper they cannot say not for extra people, for overtime, for everything. So we try to find this way to have arguments to them. For sure they not everything, and they don't want to pay. But if we have something, look, this is the thing they give us. So this is the beginning. It's good because some people are more conscious. So after this, another production are paying overtime, extra days. So we have to take time, be patient. Is the point is that we know now and we are together. So it's much better for us. Another important thing is that a lot of production designers from Colombia are women. So it's important to be like a reference from the other departments that the power of the equality and the power of the women. So it's good for us because we came from a really machista, I don't know in English, country. So it's nice that things are changing, even for the other production designers, from the other art directors, because we realize and share the sample. I'm the only man here with 4 amazing women from Colombia. So that's the reality.
We're going to open it to questions from the audience, but before we do, I just wanted to ask you one last question. If you can make it a little personal and tell us what you feel that your involvement with an organization, with this organization, has is brought to you personally, or any kind of anecdote that you want to share with us of a specific situation where being an organization member has helped you.
Community. I love the fact I've connected. So when I started out, I graduated out of a theatre school and we were just sort of like chucked out. I called it the cultural sausage factory. Was chucked out and I didn't know what to do, and there was no support mechanism, there was nothing. So I really got involved because I thought I don't want anyone else to have that experience. When they leave or want to join the industry or they've left an organisation, educational, I don't want them to feel like I felt like there was no support. So for me, that's why I do it. It's like, I think in Hacks, the young comedian says, you climbed up the ladder and pulled it up. Well, I left it down and I help people up all the time. And it was so lovely, Fiona Crombie was saying that she writes to everybody that writes to her, she writes back, because she had the similar experience when she started out. And I have other friends who are the same. It's like I write, I respond to people. I do to others what wasn't done to me because I think the industry needs to be inclusive.
You know, the president of our International Alliance, Matt Loeb, has a very similar analogy. He says, people like to come in the door and then they close it behind them. So, you know, inclusivity is a very big deal, which translates to community. I feel the same way. I am the only member of my family to be a member of a trade, who's ever been a member of a trade organization. And I'm very proud of it. I love the unity. I particularly like the opportunities that it's given me. You know, I've been fortunate to be on some fantastic shows with a very high bar, high production value, and it's only because of my membership in this union that I'm able to do that. It's a tremendous feeling of gratification, you know, that comes from this. And I am very well aware that I don't do the damn work. You know, it's my crews that did it. Everybody working together collectively is a beautiful thing. It's like a big beehive, you know. So that's why I started out by saying, you know, the very first words I said was the union's been very, very good to me.
I've actually been quite lucky in the UK. I think because I changed career. I used to work for a charity in Cumbria, where I'm from, using filmmaking as a social engagement tool for vulnerable and disadvantaged communities, and as a professional development tool for a town that it builds the nuclear submarines that Trident use, and everybody in the town just works there, and there's no kind of creative outlet. So it was a stepping stone as well to the industry. So we would try and connect people onto trainee placements and that kind of thing. So I kind of was aware of the training organisations, and there's some brilliant ones in the UK. There's Screen Skills, which used to be Skills Set, and a company called Talking Points. And they all kind of they offer mentoring opportunities. I've had 3 mentors, I think. One of them's here, Francesca's here somewhere, who helped me a couple of years ago and still is in contact today. So I've been quite lucky in that way. I just kind of was bouncing around opportunity to opportunity and eventually settled and found my way. But I think the organisations are a way of continuing work and also giving back as well. So I still go home every year and teach on at least one of the film projects, and always try to kind of, and still look for mentoring as well. It's like a 2-way thing all the time, and then everything you learn you can pass on and give back. So the Guild and Bectu, they both provide a recognised platform to do that from, which I think is what being part of it is for me, and definitely a community. I mean, it's an instant network of colleagues and potential crew and potential employees. So yeah, it's just really good.
I think that our big challenge is still growing up, is still building the things and connection with other people to improve ourselves. But the most important thing for me, that is my motivation, is I still dreaming that the things can change, and I don't want to put my hope to one side. That's it.
I want to add one thing. This is such a collective thing. I want to allude to what Janine said the other day. I don't know if Janine's still here, but we all got to make sure that nobody falls out of the boat.
Okay, we have time for a few questions, so.
Just a quick one. Because we are in a global world, we are all here from different countries. It's amazing, and thank you again for this whole weekend, but talking about these particular opportunities to organize and be together and support each other. Do you as organizations talk to each other and support, so when a designer needs to go to the States or come from the States to the UK or go to Oz or anywhere else in the world, how does that work?
There's a union conference that happens every year called UniMay.
Sorry.
There's a union conference that happens every year called UniMay. It was in Brussels, and I've met your head of ATAAC at Madrid. What's his name? I don't remember what his name is.
Are you referring to President Loeb?
Yeah, President Loeb I met 2 years ago. So we need one for production designers, but the unions all meet at what's called UniMay, and it's run out of Brussels, and they have a conference every year. And I have to say, I went in 2019 to Madrid, and it was absolutely amazing to meet other people, because I realised, and they're all film production people, everybody has the same issues. Producers don't know what we do, we need to fight for conditions, the hours are too long, the networks and all the studios are pushing us down, they threaten to go to other countries. Now I'm speaking really fast, I'm sorry. But we all have the same issues. So, I mean, that UniMay is amazing, but this is also amazing because as I've sat here this weekend, I'm going, it's the same.
I just quickly, I first came to this organization through looking for crew and art directors in other countries. So, for example, in Chile, I found Matthias O'Donnell through the organization, which is then hooking up with Inbal and Kalina. And then on the reverse side, when I was just in Vietnam, I said, young art directors, people I met said, join this group, and they have. And that's making us stronger, really. So, yeah, thank you very much.
I think also Art Seneco, I don't know if Sarah Horton's still here, but she's representing the Film Designers Guild at Art Seneco, and Blair, I think, is going as well. So I think that's a kind of a meeting of different guilds. Art Seneco, European guilds all talking together, which is super important for us, given we're no longer European.
What I wanted to share a story about how my aha moment about the hours in the art department. And that was when I did a show and the rates for the carpenters were low, and so they said, pay us for 12 hours, but we're going to work 10 hours. And I thought, aha, why can't I do that with my department? So since that moment, I have been enforcing 10-hour days for everybody in my department. That's not me, though. My hours are different. But that's been kind of my advocacy, learning from the carpenters, learning from other union members of how they overcome the lower rates and how they can make a living. So that's just an idea.
Thank you all for being here. It's really fantastic to hear everybody's opinion and point of view. In the United States of America, while we've had really amazing gains in our negotiations, there has been a slight disconnect between our membership and our leadership. And I'm wondering what processes, systems, things that you have in place in order for you to have a very collaborative and seamless interchange between yourselves and your membership.
How do you communicate between management and your members so that there's not a disconnect? Is that right? In essence?
I think more than management, the union itself and its members, just so that the members can be heard, so that what they need is heard, and so that their voice is carried through to negotiations.
So in Australia, for the union, I'm going to talk about that, we have Federal Council, which is once a year, and all the elected delegates come along. But my ECS section, we have a 3-monthly Zoom where we get together. For the APDG, which is the guild, we have a monthly meeting, which is everybody, and then we kind of have a 6-week, 2-month, 3-month screen committee meeting, which limps along depending on how busy everyone is. But trying to listen. When we come to negotiate for the union, we're organised by the paid staff, and the better they are at organising us, the better negotiations are. So they are phenomenal. I cannot tell you, like getting proper organisers who organise. They don't know what we do. They do know what we do, but we know what we do and we know what we need, but they organise us, and they organise us to be collectively on the same page. Like Chuck was saying, like to go, the strength is in numbers, but the strength is being all on the same page. What are we willing to give up? What do we really need? That's sort of unity. So having people who can organise you is fantastic.
I think we have time for 2 more questions.
Hello. Hello. So it sounds as though several of you are coming up with descriptions of the art department, which is quite time intensive, as you've said. And I'm sure many other people are doing the same and thinking the same thoughts. Is there a way that you could share your information, as some of you might have infographics that others might not? And I'm sure some of the terminology might be different, but it'd be amazing if there was like an international resource that could be shared. And yeah, I just would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, the Australian Production Design Guild has a great manual which is online that you can all check out, which was one of our references when we were doing our manual. And in our union, it was going to be downloadable, and it's going to be printed, and it's going to be sent to all members. And definitely, I think, in the collective, we have a list of resources on our website. We're trying to be very specific to production designers. But I do think that there's complex issues about, because these manuals tend to be fairly specific, and the work systems are really different between territories. So I don't know if everything applies. But for example, in our manual, we have sections about safety, about VFX collaboration, about clearance. And so I think some things could be very helpful and hopefully can be shared digitally.
I mean, it'd actually be really great to compare the different systems. I mean, I actually think it would be really interesting, because in Australia we've had designers from all around the world come, and they come and they have a specific way they want to set art departments up. And so I think Diego and I, when he was describing, I was like, that's like us. We have all these different people coming in, and you kind of have to adapt. So our system is a hybrid between America and the UK and a little bit of Europe. Like, it's really weird. There's this same but different. I've worked in China. There's a props person, but they sweep the floor. So like, I was thinking they're going to do the props, but no, their responsibility is to sweep the studio floor. So it's a bit like, what are the commonalities in the descriptors? So it would be really interesting. I was in the TV talk, and one of the designers was talking about the workflow and using Slack. I mean, this is more, we're talking more at a different level, but it would be really interesting to dive into work processes.
This event here that we've participated in will really increase this cross-border communication between our organizations, for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this is the platform to share that, isn't it? And hopefully we can share it through the collective.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be amazing. I mean, Scenic that you were talking about is a federation of all of the 13 European associations that got together fairly recently to make sure that they're all connected. So, Scenic, the Australia, we got almost everybody here. So it would be really beautiful if this will be an opportunity as a springboard to further communication and collaboration in the future. And on that note, we're going to thank everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.